We are live. So Jamie, great to see you again this morning. Thank you again so much for joining my CISO Spotlight series for my Cyber Intelligence Weekly newsletter. It's been great, getting to know you over the years here, and so thrilled that you joined us today. Do you mind starting off by maybe introducing yourself, letting the
Sure.
audience know kind of who you are, what you do, and where you came from?
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. And first, thanks for having me on your podcast here. And I really appreciate it because it's I think what you're doing is noble, and I love the messaging that's out there. So this we should have
Awesome.
a lot of fun. Yeah, we should have a lot of fun with
Appreciate
this.
that.
All right, Jamie Giroux. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Platinum Equity. I've been in cyber for 30 years. This is 30 years for me. I incorporated a company in 1996 in cyber. It wasn't called cyber then,
How's that
but it was.
possible? Aren't you? You're like 37, right? I don't know how that's
Yeah,
possible.
that's exactly right. Okay, good. All right, this is over. We're good. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 30 years ago, I was reflecting on that because it's always, you're updating your LinkedIn, you're updating this and that, and you're like, oh, 20 years or 25 years. And then my resume and my LinkedIn profiles and bios and stuff have always been 25 plus years. And then this year it's like I gotta change it to 30. Anyway, so yeah, I started a long time ago before cyber was cyber, and I've always been here. Like I've always been in the space. I mean, IT and the intersections between, audit compliance, IT controls, all these things that, and of course you start with firewalls and pen testing and all those different pieces that are associated with it. But cyber's kind of always been the thing, and Canadian, but and spent quite a bit of time in the U.S. doing different working with different organizations in health and finance. I did a bunch in law enforcement, a bunch in different areas of things that we can't talk about in organized crime and all those kinds of great scenarios. And so I've just been really blessed with all the opportunities that I've had. And I recently, I guess it was November, I launched a book called The Drew Methodology, and it's kind of this EQ centric, human focused roadmap of how we can spend so much time and so much effort in training about the things that don't actually matter. We do these phishing tests that say don't click on these links, or we train on new technologies or new capabilities, and I think we have this underinvested frontier of our people, and how we teach them. EQ as a muscle. It's one of my taglines is EQ as a muscle. We have to train it every day. This is what we have to do. And so really exciting stuff as it relates to that, and working with some educations to institutions to put it out there, and to get it into the hands of students. I'll digress. It stemmed from a while back, a few years ago. I went and did my master's at RIT, and what I studied was emotional intelligence and cybersecurity as it relates to what's out there, what's been in there from a curriculum perspective, and so we built a curriculum as part of my master's, and then really was the impetus to start the book, and what a gap, Dan, like no one, not EMT, not doctors, not nurses, not firefighters, not no one is really focused on teaching these tangible skills of getting
Got it.
humans ready for what they're about to go through. And so that's kind of where that's kind of from the start of pen testing and doing all that work back in the 90s, which is a whole other story how I get into that. But anyway, and then
Yeah.
all the way through full circle, read the book. No, all the way full circle into where we are today. CISO, helping organizations, helping to build and grow. This. I'm going to say this security story as it relates to what we need to have as a because that's what we are, storytellers. And then to on this other side of things to be able to kind of generativity and giving back to others, and kind of trying to just send the message of what we're working on. Yeah.
And it's so perfect that you're here on this show with me, right? And I think it's the reason why we clicked so well is we deeply care about the human side of cybersecurity here, and that was core to the mission of this organization when I started this firm, right? Um,
Hmm.
you strip away all the cool tech and the tools and the techniques and the fun hacking bits, and it's like, well, why are we doing this at the end of the day? And it's about people,
Yep.
right? And one of the most overlooked things is the people. And for us, I mean, we're a human first cyber company. We say
Mhm.
that all the time. So when did you first feel like in your kind of career that that was like a glaring missing piece for you? Like when did that become
Yeah.
apparent?
So I would say it took longer than I wish it would have, because man, we'd be at a different place today if I had known all this stuff. You look
Yeah,
back and
hindsight's
because
2020 for sure. Yeah.
100%. But similar. I mean, you're familiar with this. I mean, working with companies, doing assessments, doing audits, doing control work, doing trying to put programs in place and trying to get organizations you know compliant, but there was no comprehension. It was just compliance. It was check boxes. It was, make sure your firewall's tight, or make sure this is in place. And so I can tell you, I won't say the customer's name, but I can tell you the customer, and the approximate time frame is probably around 2004 or 2005. And I fired my first client because I had done 4 assessments year after year after year, and nothing was changing. It was like, you're writing up all these responses, you're writing up all this work, and you're doing all these things to say, this is what makes you better. This
What's the
is
point? Yeah.
and then what's the point? Nobody's listening. Nobody's doing anything with it. And I went, so I fired the client, and I was sitting there, and I fired the client. I just didn't choose to renew in the next review. I mean, that's like harsh words to say. I fired the client. But realistically, I didn't go back and renew, and I sat back and I reflected on it at that point, and that was one of the defining moments. Was hey, we have to do something better. We have to send better messages. We have to do better with our messaging. And then the second one was, I was doing a bunch of work in the mid 2000s, 2015, 2016 mark, in cyber ranges, and we were bringing lots of companies through cyber ranges and just technical drills on how you're experiencing it, and how you're performing, and all the performance metrics were about what MTTR, MTT, and mean time to detection, mean time to response, mean time to everything, and nobody was looking at the people. And this is where it went off. This was like really clear that we have a human piece of this, that I actually don't care what the technologies are. I mean, AI coming, it's going to turn everything on its head. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I actually don't care, firewall, SIM, tools. They're all really agnostic to me. It's about the human approach and the human centric side of how we deal with them. And I think that's where it was, really, really clear then, as it related. It just hit. It was like, wow, we are training the wrong things. We're just focused on technology and ones and zeros, and it's just the wrong approach.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the same epiphany when I started this firm, right? I told you, I think I read Start With Why
Yeah.
by Simon Sinek like 3 times in a row, and really like just deeply, thought about like, why are we doing any of this? Like, why does any of this matter? And I had that little sort of like light bulb moment myself. And um, it's an interesting point in time, when that happens, because you could realize that you could have the greatest technology in the world, and if you don't have the right people that are motivated and are fresh and
Mm.
in line with the mission and believe in you as a leader, like who cares what tools you have? Like none of it's going to work.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe we'll reach some singularity with agentic AI where it'll magically take care of all of itself. But uh,
Maybe.
I think we'll be far gone by the time that happens, right? So uh, it, it, Jamie, let me ask you, like, in a CISO's journey, in someone as successful as yourself, um, you think about like wins and losses, and sometimes
Mhm.
those losses are remembered more than the wins, right? Because they could leave some
Mhm.
scar tissue behind, but those are the very best like teaching moments, whether it's in
Mhm.
your career or life. What is a scar that sort of like set the foundation for you, or taught you the most?
Yeah, so without listen, we're not going to get like super deep here and go crazy. So I had a defining moment in 1994 when I had a car accident. I crushed every bone in my lower body. I died twice on the table. I had 17 surgeries to correct it.
Yep.
Bad, bad stuff, bad. Um, and so there's you carry a lot with you when those things happen. But one of the things that you can take out of it is yeah, I'm going to say this and it's going to sound cheesy, but the glass half full methodology or mainstay in your brain. And there is something about that of, it's the first one is woe is me and this is dark and I don't, how am I going to continue or how is this going to be or you're never going to walk again or all those different pieces of it. And then it's you flip into the no, I'm alive and I've got all these opportunities and so everything and this draws here, everything frames itself into reactions and responses. And then those reactions and responses in any situation, and this is all about self-awareness, is all about the triggers that set you off, and then how you react to those and how you respond to those. And so, I've had significant times and memories in my career where I've reacted poorly. I've reacted. I maybe flew off the handle. It's funny. I was just recording a segment for the training stuff and how we react or respond when somebody says something or does something or triggers something emotionally. And if we're aware of what our triggers are, we're so much better in being able to control our responses. Maybe we pause. We don't send that email. We don't, because I know I've sent it. I can tell you that I have definitely been in HR offices on a couple of occasions because of something that I said was not the right response. It was not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with maturity. And this is growing your EQ of your controls, your self-awareness, your self-management, and then the social side of what are your responses and how are they impacting others, especially as you get into leadership and you start to run a team and you're looking at it and saying, if I act in this way, they're going to mirror that behavior. They're going to react in a similar fashion. And I need to not be a dumpster fire right now. I need to not be, out of control. I need to be fully in control and calm and right. So I look back often and reflect on areas in my career where I know, because you remember them. Like when it really doesn't go well, you definitely like you keep those in your pocket and you remember them often. And so I've started to turn those, and we're using those as modules, as training modules to say, hey, I can remember a time when I did this. I can remember a time when I reacted this way. And I think what it does is it builds trust. It builds connection because we're all human. We all mess up. If I sat here and said, oh, I've been perfect all my career and everything's been great, well, everyone would turn off and no one would watch us and your subscription numbers would tank. But but the point of this is how do as we bring in the human side of being vulnerable and being open and being communicative and I mean, the vulnerability is a big piece and we share our stories. We built this incredible amount of trust with our team and incredible amount of trust in how we go forward.
Yeah, and there's
How do
great responsibility in taking those learnings and putting them out there for everyone to see, right? And the great courage, I think, in you sharing your story in the book. I think I said to you when I first, kind of read the introduction, the prologue to your book, and you opened up and told, probably a very tough story for you to tell publicly, that you just shared with us. And there's a way to go about life. Like you could send people out there and they'll just brute force their way through and they'll have all these hard learnings themselves. But the whole idea of coming on a podcast like this, or you putting your thoughts down in a book, or building a whole rubric around it to train people on it,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the whole idea, right? Like people are still going to have to learn for themselves, but you can at least arm them with the right ideas, how to manage situations when you run into these in life, and put some of those like arrows in their quiver so they get to a point in their life, they see that, they pattern recognize it, and maybe they have a better idea of how to respond differently. It
Yep.
helps them, helps everyone around them.
Yeah.
And I love that you're focusing on bringing that to this field, because this is a field that is missing that in a large, large way. Um, this
I
field needs
love
more empathy. It needs more,
it
you know,
does. It really does.
I mean,
Yeah.
like everyone in this field is out there hard charging every day, wanting to do the best that they can for the right reasons, and with almost, no one thinking about the well-being of those folks, right?
So a couple comments there. First one, arrow in the quiver. Arrows in the quiver. I love it. I use tools in the toolbox. But same approach, same everything. Because it's like, we're asking people to build, a giant house with a screwdriver and a hammer,
Yeah.
it's that's, um, and I think as we build culture for security, and we move away from being enforcers to enablers.
Hmm.
And I think that's a key statement, for folks that are in security, and when I talk to students, or guest lecturing or talking to different teams, um, we have to get away from that approach. Being an enforcer is not what security culture is about. An enabler, absolutely. I think that's the right, because I think a lot of organizations, they run security culture as compliance programs or compliance checkboxes of we have these things in place, and that doesn't do anyone any good, from that perspective. So, yeah, it's just really trying to change that. I have I've used this for years now, where I go into a Monday morning meeting with the team, and ask them questions like, what's your capacity? Not your workload, your capacity. Where's your capacity at? Because if our employees are contributors to our culture, and somebody has something that happens to them on the weekend, or something happens to them in personal lives, and they come in and they're at a 20, I can't ask them to be an incident responder or a defender or do anything that's of any capacity,
Yeah.
as it relates to something that's going to tax them both physically, mentally. So I think we have to be, and this isn't just about being soft or being the soft side. We say soft skills or emotional or touchy feely or any of those things. This is about being connected at a human level and understanding where our most critical resources are in the defenses and the things that they have to do. And that's kind of the approach, one of the approaches. And if I could sum it up, that's how that's how I would want a team to feel. That's how I would want, teams in general, from any organization, to feel that connected with each other, to know that somebody's falling down a little bit, and we step in, and we contribute and help. Yeah, all part of the
I love
pieces.
that, Jamie.
Yeah,
I love it. Shifting a little bit to cyber landscape, I want to ask
sure.
a couple questions around there, and I think you have really great perspectives on this. I mean, you get to see how many businesses are doing, different things
Mhm.
on a daily basis, and they all have different risk profiles, and that's an interesting place to be, right? So we talk a lot about like what's overhyped, underhyped in the security world. I would really love to hear from your perspective, like what out there right now is kind of, on that overhyped side for you, and
Mhm.
conversely, like what's on that other side of the coin, like something that's maybe underhyped, not talked about enough that you wish, people would pay more attention to.
So, I have one that I'll start with, because I think it's the underhyped that leads to the overhyped. So AI is slightly overhyped. I mean, everybody's building everything to do AI. Everybody AI is going to solve the world's problem. It's gonna take over and help us to do all these things. The underhyped side of this is the garbage in, garbage out, and the data side of it. And I think that the industry is in a big I think we're in a challenging place right now, where we haven't done enough work in the data governance, in the data tagging, and the data.
Yeah,
I think that
I agree
many
with that.
many organizations are not doing anything with AI governance. They're taking AI in. They're doing whatever it is that they're doing with it to revolutionize and save their world. Um, but they haven't thought about the ramifications, around processing data that's not supposed to be processed within those tool sets. And I think that's probably a bigger challenge today than people realize. And I think that you're going to start to see it with, I think privacy is going to overlap and start to have conversations. I think you'll see GDPR is starting to come into play now, and saying, hey, you have to be very careful about what data you're putting into AI, whether it's agentic or whether it's just LLMs in general. But I do think that the overhype is it's going to fix everything, and the underhype is you haven't done enough to protect it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. I think, some of the capabilities of some of the agentic stuff that's
Mm-hmm.
out there and just how it can make cyber professionals maybe a little more efficient just in everyday like daily tasks, versus it being infused in all the security tools, right? It's like, okay, how can we enable our people just to be more efficient, more effective, reduce some of like the, burden that's on them every day,
Yeah,
with more AI personal assistance versus like the focus on what's the next, AI in the SOC or AI in my EDR. That's all important, right? But
yeah.
um, how can
I
it help the
think
people?
I think that there's tremendous opportunity for AI to have a very strong role, especially you mentioned SOCs. And I think Security's Operations Center. I mean, I remember building security operations centers, and the first thing we do is you have to staff it 24/7. And in staffing it 24/7, you know that the night shift is probably just watching Netflix and waiting for a red light to or green
Yeah,
light to turn red. I mean, and we accepted
I
that.
did
We just
that. I did
yeah.
that role. Yeah, but I didn't have Netflix. There's a TV that we rolled into,
Yes.
our
Yes.
office,
Yes.
and in a VHS, like, and we had like I think three movies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like Field of Dreams, like Star Wars, and maybe one other thing. But
Sure.
we watched the same movies on repeat. But I've been there. Yeah.
But that's the and so AI transformational. And I mean ingesting, investigations and investing log data and taking that log data and making heads or tails out of it. Awesome. I think transformationally it will be so helpful in those roles. And so I think there's a great place for it. But I do think that we still have to be cautious around the decisions that we're making or not making associated with what we're ingesting or what we're doing with it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Completely agree. Um, so I know you like to speak the truth. For you, what would be an uncomfortable truth in cybersecurity today? Like, what is something that people maybe don't want to hear, but is a true statement?
I think that if I was just, I think we're treating human problems with technical solutions. At the end of the day, I think that we have security awareness trainings that really don't work that well. We've been dealing with and fighting with the same fundamental problems for 25 more years. We can't surf the web securely. We can't send links securely. We can't send email securely. And I think listen, I have tremendous amounts of empathy for the end user there because what we do is we go and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of protections to put in place so that they can surf and email and do all these things securely. And then we still say to them, well, be careful of the banner because if it doesn't have a banner, it came from outside. Or if it or you just be wary of links or be wary of toad attacks or be wary of it's like what the hell? What are we doing? This
Yeah.
is 25 years. And so we just keep throwing technical solutions at human problems. And AI is like transformationally, it's changing the world in the number of attacks and what attackers are using this for. And so, I think if we and listen, I mean, I did it. I mean, we send in phishing campaigns and we try to do pen testing and do all these things. And like, haha, we got this person, and haha, we got them to click, and almost a shaming game in the early days of like, I can't believe that you would do that. And now it's not who clicked. I think we have to be why.
Why did they click?
What was it? What was it about that message that resonated? What was it about that and then in the background from a technical perspective, we can look at things of how do we secure a better secure system? How do we better block and trends? But not we can't lead with technology. We have to lead with the human side. We have to lead with fixing these problems first. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
And
that so
and
much.
well, and here's the uncomfortable part. We've never done this. I mean,
Yeah.
I can walk into a room all day long and tell me when was the last time that I stood up in front of you and talked to you about email security or firewalls or firewall management or programs or all those things in place. When was the last time anyone walked in and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you today about empathy." I want to talk to you today about EQ, or I want to talk to you about cultural leadership. I mean, it just doesn't, it's not the norm. And I think that's what we have to change. Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my next question, right? And one of the uncomfortable truths I hear a lot about in cybersecurity is people that get, a bit burnt out. There
Hmm.
is a asymmetric war being waged every day, right? That the
Hmm.
hackers only need to be right once, the
That's right.
defenders need to be right 100% of the time. And typically the people that are involved in defending networks and on the good side of cyber, they care,
Hmm.
right? They're
Yep.
in it because they care and they want
Yeah.
to like do the right thing, which is hard to tell people to like, hey, slow down. Um, the work is never going to end. You got to take a break. You got to
Yeah.
clear your head.
Yeah.
What are some ways, in your career that have worked for you to help keep people fresh
Yeah.
and the best that they could
Yeah.
be?
So, I mean, a couple of things. So I talked earlier about capacity versus workload because there's a
Yep.
very different thing. With capacities, just how are you? Where are you? Are you good? If the big event happened today, how do you feel that you are to be able to handle that, or how do you feel that you can handle what's on your plate? Not workload, because we'll always be overworked. I mean, there's always, and I shouldn't say overworked, but there's always a vast amount of work to do, right? I mean, it's
Right.
always there. But burnout isn't just workload; it's that emotional weight then as well, right? It's the pieces that you have to carry with you. It's what you're taking home at night. It's where you feel, and then lots of people carry this emotional weight of, I know these systems aren't quite secure, and so they're staying awake or staying, not sleeping at night because of, and I think that's a game changer today, because we're starting to see it in attack vectors. Fortinet vulnerabilities have been a couple of them that have come out. There's been some other instances where 0 days come out, and the attackers now have tools to write the exploitation code and the detection of the search capability to go find it. And so,
Crazy. Yeah.
you start to talk about, we used to think it's a 7-day patch cycle was an acceptable patch cycle. I,
Yeah.
I mean, those ideas are going out the window. Like that's, and
Totally.
so we have to think about, like, so we think about it from a business risk perspective and all the things that are happening that way. But again, then go back to this emotional weight of, you have those resources on your team that they care. They're pleasers. They want to make sure everything's, and they're carrying that home with them. They're carrying that weight with them. And so I think communication is really key in this space. I'm just being, aware of it, of having conversations, and then normalizing that burnout signals, before there's a crisis, normalizing that it's okay to say, I'm tapped, like I have to step back a little bit, or I need you to step back. Time off is a really important piece. I think I've become pretty good at this point in my career of detecting when someone's struggling. Um, but being able to do something with that, being able to understand, and that there's no career liability here, that you're struggling because of something else that's going on. This doesn't mean that you failed. This doesn't mean that you're in a bad spot. This doesn't mean that you're going to be fired. This doesn't mean that, hey, we're here as a team, and
Yep.
collectively we all stand. So, and then I guess the other piece of it to kind of help burnout, or to help that feeling of burnout, is we have to stop punishing mistakes, and start celebrating the wins and celebrating the other sides of it, because we spend too much time in postmortems, and just pointing fingers, and this was the problem, or this was and then we just that how do we learn, not how do we blame. How do we
Yeah.
learn, not how do we blame? Because I think we all learn collectively from that. And if we do that in a collaborative team session, everyone gets to bring their pieces to it, and their what do I say, their experiences from it, and we grow together with it. Yeah.
It's easy to play the blame game. And
It
yeah,
is. Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
easy side of the equation. It's much harder to,
Yeah.
do what you said and have empathy and really go through it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I have to ask a question. I often see a lot of younger cyber pros, right? They love the idea, or maybe it's their goal to become a CISO one day, but
Yeah.
I realize in my conversations with them that there's a lot of misconceptions they have about what being a CISO actually means,
Yeah.
versus what they see on TV, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What what would you describe as like maybe a biggest misconception that, younger cyber professional might have about what being a CISO actually is?
Yeah, I think the first one that probably, kind of sets them back in their chair a little bit is that it's not a technical role. It's
Yeah.
it's it's actually it's we sell it as being this, security leadership, a technical security role. It's not. It's really about the business. It's really about enabling. It's really
Yeah.
about not. It's the right amount of enforcement, yes, or protections, controls, and capabilities that are put in place. But it's really about its communication, its influence, its leadership, and then being able to take risks that are there, translate it to the board, negotiate, budget negotiations, making the right investments, the right components, inspiring teams, inspiring leadership, inspiring those. That's that's managing stress and managing stress and incidents and keeping that control and bring that. But it's really not a technical role at all. I
Yeah.
think some of the best CISOs I've met, some of the best security leaders actually didn't, maybe had a little bit of IT understanding and background, but they understand people. They understand the business.
Yeah. And for some CISOs, that's maybe something that carries them there, right? The technical chops maybe carry them to that position, but then they
Sure.
realize they have to kind of retrain themselves and take on a different persona to be successful, and that can be difficult, but that
And
is a
and
common thread.
yeah, and I think daunting for CISOs themselves. I think it can be really challenging is that
Yes.
you carry all these technical chops and you get in and go, oh crap, what have I, here's your title, good luck with that. I mean, off you
Yeah,
go. It's like,
it's not like there's
whoa.
some CISO finishing school that like teaches you how to be successful, right? It's
Yeah.
tough.
Spend time with your peers, spend time with your with other CISOs. That would be my advice on that is that there's lots of resources out there. There's lots of people out there that are willing to share and help. But you have to be willing to reach out and be vulnerable and ask for that help. Yeah.
So
How
I'm
do
so excied to ask you this next question. It's the billboard question. I've been asking CISOs if you could put a message on a billboard that every new CISO had to read and drive by once a day, what would that
uh,
be?
well, I mean, I think the first one is stop being an enforcer and start being an enabler. I think I do. I mean, I live by that. I really do think that that's an important one. But I think if it's for a new CISO, the goal isn't compliance, it's commitment. You're
Oh, I
not you're
like
not here
that.
to check the box. You're here to commit to the role. You're here to commit to everyone that supports it, and you're here to commit to the overall journey of the organization. And I think that's so. Yeah, the goal isn't compliance; it's commitment. Yeah,
I like that a lot. I love that. That's catchy too. That's catchy.
nice. Yeah, there
You
you
might have to trademark that. Yeah.
go. Okay, all right.
Um, so, we're kind of nearing the end here, but just have a
Yep.
couple quickies for you.
Yeah.
Other than your book, have any recommendations on, books, concepts, philosophies, good podcasts to listen to,
Oh
newsletters
wow.
to subscribe to?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, what are some good resources that, you would want to
So
share with the listeners?
yeah, I spend quite a bit of time in the psychological side of emotional intelligence. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, on that side. So some of the pioneers like Daniel Goleman has there, and written EQ, emotional intelligence. I spend quite a bit of time in that. I actually don't spend a lot of time with podcasts specifically on the technology side because I think that they go into rants that I just don't. It's not that I don't care. I just don't think it's the right message. So I do spend quite I mean, of course, you have to listen to and watch, the certain things that are happening with the industry and what's happening with threat intelligence and, what's
Yeah,
happening
for sure.
as trends. But I like to follow along with people, like Goldman's or others that just I don't know that just bring this level of professionalism and bring this level of EQ demeanor that's just yeah. So that's yeah. Sorry, you caught
Awesome.
me on that one
That's
because I
good.
was like, I got a whole list now. I got to go flipping through my podcast to see. It's like who's it? Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we will certainly link to your book when we publish this.
Oh,
So
perfect.
for
Yay.
for anyone listening, make sure you check out Jamie's book because I feel like that's a wonderful resource.
Thank
Um,
you.
and then, yeah. So last thing I want to ask, right? oftentimes we have a lot of people that help us along our journey.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
some more than others, and some are very impactful. If there was someone that you could give a shout out or show some gratitude towards, um,
Yeah.
or someone that you would want to see come and tell their story on this podcast,
Yeah.
um, who would that be?
Okay. Well, first one, so I think two. First off, I think you should be flipped around and put in this seat because I think you have a great story, and I'd love to interview you in this as well. So anyway, there's one
Let's
for you.
do that. Thank you.
There you go. Let's do it. Let's do that. Listen, there's a gentleman I've worked with for years, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, but there's one in particular, and I've been spending some time with him, bouncing some ideas off of him, and been working on. And I realized how important or impactful his role is. His name's Tim Keefe. Runs a company called Transform CX. Not a CISO, but they have a product called BounceWise IQ, and it fits very much with employment engagement and asking questions and asking. And I think that there's something there that organizations really need to start to think about. And I think he'd be fascinating for people because it's for people to hear his message or talk about. And I say that because it's things that we can all do, Dan. It's things that we can all do to just ask questions of our employees, our resources, the ones or folks around us, and what that means. And he's just got it's a great story. So I've been working with him quite a bit in the last little while, and we just really got a synergy here around this, EQ, employee engagement,
Yeah.
where engagement is so important.
Engagement
It's
is
really
huge, right?
yeah. Oh, and with all the insider threats, with all the people, all the things that are happening internally, and all the bad stuff that happens, man, it's the right approach. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, you could tell when an employee is not engaged, and sometimes that is a sign of like nefarious things like insider
Yeah.
threat, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, well, fantastic, Jamie. This has been so great, hearing some of your story and you sharing it,
Yeah.
here for the newsletter and for our listeners.
Yeah.
Really wanted to say thank you so much for being a good friend, and love working with you, and having you here as part of this has just been tremendous. So really appreciate you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate being here and sharing my story. It's been a great experience. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers. Thanks.